Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. This is CMGTalk. This is Catherine Gallacher. Welcome, and thanks for joining me today. So, as a podcaster, I always welcome the analytics that I receive. And with the analytics, it tells me how many people have viewed my podcasts. It also tells me how many people are viewing individual episodes. So when you like, share, and download each episode, I then get to see what kind of episodes are being the ones that are most engaged with and the ones that you find most enjoyable. And because you are the people that I am doing these episodes for, it's really important for me to hear from you in that way. And also, to receive correspondence from you, whether it's by email or by, via my website. So the more information I know about the topics you want me to cover, the more I can then make sure that my podcast is being relevant for you. So with that in mind, what I'd like to do is to cover a topic here and do it in a slightly different way, because I'm known to be quite creative and I work very creatively with my clients too. Here's a dilemma about choices. Now, we all face choices in life. And sometimes we feel that it's not within us to make that decision. Sometimes we feel we don't have the ability or the confidence or even the information and resources. Sometimes we're not given permission. Depending on where we are, who we are, what age we are, and the liberties we have. The reality is that life is about choices, but not all of us are privileged enough to be able to make them ourselves. And sometimes we're not ready to make those choices ourselves, either because of how we're feeling, or because maybe we're at a vulnerable age, or maybe we are a vulnerable person and these choices are made for us. And maybe choices are made because it's safeguarding measures that are being put in place. Sometimes choices happen upon us. And that's what happened to Mike. Mike felt his life was just happening. Now, Mike was a good friend. And he liked to see himself as a good friend. He liked to see himself as a good person. As much as he could be, he would tell people, I'm a pretty good person, I'm a pretty good guy, as much as I can be. I'm not perfect. He did everything right. That's what you would say. Listen, I'm a good guy. I do the right thing. Then one day, he had a dilemma. And he was faced with choice. Now, up until now, a lot of his choices were about education. Do I go to further education? Do I do manual work? Do I start up my own business? He made his choice. Facing relationships. Having relationship dilemmas. Sometimes he made a choice, sometimes he just let the choices take fold. Eventually, he met his person. He said that was an easy choice. The choice to have children. He said that just kind of happened. He says, I'm a happening kind of guy. Things happen. And then work. Well, work happened to him, he said, and he felt he had no choice. He got called in one day and he was told, listen, you're a great guy. You've been with us for some time now. You know, the economy's taking a dive and it's a difficult time for all of us. And after what's happened over the last few years, I'm sure you'll understand. He's like, my head's spinning. Where's this going? You know, what are they doing? You know, what kind of choice am I going to have at my age? And he's thinking, well, what kind of choices are they going to give me? And they said, it's not you. It's how things are. And it's not you are making redundant. Your job's been made redundant. It's not personal. He's like, well, it's personal to me, isn't it? What choices do I have, he's saying? What decisions do I have to make? Choices. I'm unprepared for this. I'm not ready for this. I don't know what choices I have. So he sat down and they appointed a life coach who talked through options and what choices could be on the table for him, but not within that organisation. What would you do if your circumstances changed? He got some coaching, practical information, practical steps, did some work on his confidence, and he decided to apply for some jobs. That was his decision and his choice. Now, as he's reflecting on his life, because big, major, life-changing decisions provoke thought-provoking thoughts, don't they? You start thinking, I thought I was quite comfortable. I was assuming that my life is, going to be, in the same direction. And then suddenly, and he started looking at everything in his life, the choices he had made, the decisions he'd made. What if I hadn't taken that apprenticeship? What if I had went on to further education? I might have been better placed. And the life coach said, yeah, but you didn't. But you could now. And he's saying, I can't afford to now because I have responsibilities, choices. What if I didn't have these responsibilities? Well, he does have the responsibilities. And then he said, I feel bad about thinking if I didn't have these responsibilities, I'd be able to go off and travel and, I would be able to go off and do the things that I didn't maybe do that I'd been thinking of doing. Finding myself traveling, being able to do that freedom type things that I wanted to do. And then he sat and he thought, Well, maybe that's not for now. Maybe that's for later. Maybe my focus is on getting stability back, bringing in an income again. His choices were time-bound. He had to make a decision by a certain time because he only had so much money available now. But the other thing, of course, was he wasn't on his own. The choices that he was making impacted on his partner and impacted on, to a lesser extent, the extended family. It also affected his children too. So he sat and he thought through and discussed it through with his partner. And then he spoke through the options and decisions to look at his choices with an independent professional life coach that the organisation provided. What would you do? Now, the decision and the choices, he assumed that he would have to take a lesser salary. But he wrote and then upgraded his CV. Put it on the appropriate platforms. And then he did some training on interviewing techniques because his confidence had taken a real dip. And he applied for types of jobs that were slightly different, but also jobs that were in line with what he already did. And he was open to all opportunities that came his way. He broadened his choices. And he also considered consultancy. But that wasn't something he had thought about initially. But he thought he could do some consultancy as well to top up his income. What would you do? We know with the economy the way it is just now, very few jobs are for life. We know that with the economy now, a lot of people will have to consider a change of their current post. And it's good to be able to have an updated CV, and it's good to have different skill sets to be able to consider other types of work. I've been self-employed since 2003. Yeah, so I know how hard it is to work and run a practice within your own industry. Particularly this industry I work in, it's exceptionally difficult. People think because you're self-employed that you have a certain status and a certain, type of living. No, not necessarily. The majority of people are not in that bracket. It's hard work, hard commitment. So when he looked at consultancy, he had to look at the impact that would have on his limited time he would have available, on the income he would have to make. And also, whether he had the emotional reserve, the energy, the ability the self-belief to be able to do that. He then considered the fact that he was going to be applying for posts that came up. Hopefully, he said, I hope there is a post to come up. So you took the opportunity to go out there and look. And for every post that you applied for, you didn't get any replies. What would you be doing? What would you be advising them right now? Right? You had some time, but you also knew they had to network. Choices. You had to network and start connecting with people, because that's how we often will find work comes to us, through engagement with people. So he started calling people, messaging people. He started getting to know the people in his industry more. He started to connect and say, look, I've applied for this role. I'm really interested in this type of role. And I'm wondering if you've got anything right now. And if not, I'd like to keep in contact with you in case a particular role comes up. And he started really engaging, connecting with people. Asking, would you mind, could you spare me 5 or 10 minutes to have a talk with you online? Just really to talk about what's being looked for now and what would you advise me to do? And people were more than happy to engage and connect with him, because they really appreciated his situation and they recognised. What actually happened was, there was one person that he connected with online, and as they were talking to him, they said, you know what, I think you'd really be a better fit in this other organisation. I've been at a conference and I met this guy, and I think he said he was looking for someone, and it's probably round about quite close by where you live. And if you'd like, I'd quite like to connect both of you together just to see. I don't know if he's filled the position, but it might be worth a try. And he was like, oh, do you know what? That would be great. He said, well, look, Mike, leave it with me. I've got your information. I've got your permission then to contact him and give him your details. And I'll make sure he knows that it's me that's suggested. And I'll say that I've spoke to you. He said, that'd be brilliant, he said. And Mike was sitting. And he said, right, that's great. And the life coach had said, well, look, that's a great opportunity that might come your way, but it might not. So you need to keep looking, you need to keep going. That's one connection, one possibility. So you get back on again, talking to people, connecting with people. It was 2.5 weeks later, you got an email out the blue. Hi, you might not know me, but I think we've got a mutual acquaintance. I think you spoke to them and they've passed your information on. I couldn't get in contact with you sooner because I was actually out of the country and I was on business. But I'd quite like to have a chat with you. Are you available anytime soon? And Mike thought, there's no time like the present. And he said, anytime it suits you. He says, I'm available now. He said, well, right, fine. And he sent a link and Mike connected. And that was the start of his journey on that new position. And he's now working. And he's worked his way up. And that was through better choices, making choices, confidence and self-belief. And that was about him being prepared to be open to opportunities that life can present. Doing his gratitudes, affirming out there what he wants, being open to receive. He had to believe, to receive, to achieve. Many people listening to this will think back on opportunities they've received because they've put the graft and the hard work in. And they might call it being lucky, they might call it being fortuitous, but they've put the steps and the hard work in to lead them to that place. Choices and decisions. When we are open to the choices, choose wisely. Because some choices are life-affirming and some choices can last a lifetime. Some choices set our life up for success. Good choices are what it's all about. The information about this particular person is not identifying any particular person. This is a sum of experiences, and it's not a particular individual. And it's not necessarily a sum of my clinical experiences. This is an example of many, many, many times I've heard somebody through the work that I do, training, and people coming up to me after conferences and people talking to me about examples just like that. Mike is just an example of the choices and decisions we can make. And as I'm talking through examples, think about how it relates to you. You might think about other people and the choices and decisions they've made and how it's led them to where they are. But also think about the choices that you're making, the choices you've made, and the ones you want to make to receive the wealth for good health and prosperity as we come into a new year. Thanks for listening. Until next time, like, share and download. Remember, these episodes always protect confidentiality and privacy. I never disclose information that would ever identify anyone in particular. I never talk about an individual or their circumstances. I always want to be respectful. Bye for now.